Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your hostess with the mostest. It's Pastor Keenan. Pastor Keenan, back with another episode of People Suck, Love 'Em Anyways. And as always, as I'm bringing the heat, my man Nick over here to the left-hand side of me is always bringing the chilled-out ice. Nick, cool me down just a little bit, buddy. How you really doing? Talk to me.
I can't tell you how it's actually been warmer lately. You know?
It
so,
has been warmer,
I can't complain too
man.
much. I got to walk around without a jacket today. That was wonderful.
I am so pumped up, first off, to see your white arms. Not really. Right. But I am...
Don't lie.
I am pumped up, however, that, man, this Easter Sunday is supposed to be actually kind of warm, like 70 degrees.
It's supposed to be 80 tomorrow.
81 tomorrow. And if you don't know this, we're actually taping this on a Monday night because Nicholas is going to have a child. Well, he's going to be with his wife who's having a child.
Ain't nothing coming out of me.
Yeah, absolutely, except for negativity.
Yeah, exactly.
But nonetheless, he's having a child in the morning at, what time are they inducing your wife? 6 a.m.? 6 a.m. in the morning, man. She hasn't seen 6 a.m. in a long time unless it's to go to the bathroom. So she's going to be a pill of peach in the morning for sure, man. But congratulations. Good luck on having a second girl. And
that's what you think.
I know, man. I know. So
I'm just saying, if that baby comes out and there's not something down there that should be down there, I am not going to be happy.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if she comes out and she is a girl, then you just need to call me a prophet because I have spoke this from the beginning. You know.
Yeah, I tell you what. You know, I mean, this may not go down good with her mom sitting right here looking at me. But if it comes out a girl, I'm naming it Keenan.
Oh, so man. Hey, listen, you keep my name out of your mouth unless you're praying for me, all right? That's what I say. So, but anyways, again, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I hope we hadn't lost anybody out there yet, but thank you for tuning in to another episode where we just talk about everyday life. We talk about Jesus. We talk about Christians. We go after the non-believers. We do what we do to try to show that all are welcomed inside of this place, man. And that's what we're talking about tonight. And for our guest, hopefully you don't host this thing, you know what I'm saying? Then you kick me out of a job. But nonetheless, for our guest tonight, we have one of our founding almost, I'll call you almost founding Fruition members, right? Was you there for the first service?
Very first service in the building.
Well, dang, man. Okay, well, then there you are. So you are part of the founding Fruition fathers then. Yeah, right. So tonight we have with us Miss Julie Uhl, who has prayed for me through the good, the bad, the ugly. She's brought ugly into my life, but she's also prayed some good into my life as well. And I would not be the soldier of Christ I am today without her prayers for sure. So, Julie, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us tonight. And how are you doing? What's going on? Talk to me. How's your life going?
I am doing well, of course. As you've already said, I'm going to be a grandma again tomorrow.
Absolutely. So. And if you don't know anything about Julie, know this. Her response to every situation is always 3 words. It is well. And I'm like, oh, woo. I don't know if that's true, but you know what? Julie always drops off the it is well. So talk to us, Julie. How long, man? Tell us about your journey a little bit for being a Christian, for, you know, just accepting Jesus into your heart and life, and then, man, how turbulent life has been even through that. You know, just talk about your life and your walk a little bit. We're going to talk about some servanthood tonight as Julie begins to tell her story a little bit. We're just coming off of night 1 from Passion Week, and it was phenomenal. But we talked about servanthood, and so we're going to be talking a lot about the sermon and a lot just about just what a servant is, not only in the church but in life and things like that. But Julie, go ahead, man. Tell us how you got started in the whole game of Christianity and leadership and servanthood and all of that good stuff.
Well, I wasn't brought up in the church.
We can tell. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead.
She's going to walk out of this building before this is over.
This is nonstop, girl. This isn't. You've listened to them. You know what we do on here. We have fun. Go ahead.
So the woman that I was working for at the time, I was 27 years old, and she knew I just was not the person to walk into a church. So she started having a home Bible study. And after a few months of that, I just realized that I did not know that if something were to happen to me, that I was going to, where I would be. And,
Right.
and, like when you learn the love of God, that you just want to unburden that and give your heart to him. And I've been running ever since. I mean,
Absolutely.
Running from God. No, I'm
No,
joking.
yes, right. No, she is running to God, man. I tell you, like, I shout praises to a lot of people. I give Julie heck a lot. I do.
Amen.
But I do. But you are truly, and I say this once, and you'll probably have to replay it after that because I don't know if I'll ever say it again.
I'll mute
but
you.
I know, right? Yeah. So, but you are probably one of the truest, most devout people as far as servanthood and as far as praying and really seeing things through that I've ever met. And I told you this in one-on-one conversation, and I'll let the 33 states and 16 countries now know that. And I've told you this before, that if everybody had your heart, like how much further would we be in the kingdom of God and in the church and everything else? Like an amazing person. I give you a lot of slack, but you a good person most of the time. So. But so you're talking about the love of God. You said that, and I want to read some scripture to you. John chapter 13. That's what we talked about tonight in the service. And this is where Jesus is washing his disciples' feet, and he's really being that example of what a servant is. Now, it's 17 verses. Please don't click off of it. I'm going to read it to the best of my ability to where it sounds like you paid somebody to read it. So just listen to this. It says, "Just before the Passover feast, Jesus knew that the time had come to leave this world to go to the Father. And having loved his dear companions, he continued to love them right to the end. It was supper time, and the devil by now had Judas, son of Simon, firmly in his grip, and all set for the betrayal. Jesus knew that the Father had put him in complete charge of everything, that he came from God and was on his way back to God. So he got up from the supper table, set aside his robe, and put on an apron. And then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the disciples, drying them with his apron. And when he got to Simon Peter, Peter said, 'Master, you wash my feet?' And Jesus answered, 'You don't understand now what I'm doing, but it will be clear enough to you later.' Peter persisted, 'You're not going to wash my feet ever.' And Jesus said, 'If I don't wash you, you can't be part of what I'm doing.' And Master," said Peter, "not only my feet then, but wash my hands and wash my head." And Jesus said, "If you've had a bath in the morning, you only need your feet washed now, and you're clean from head to toe. My concern, you understand, is holiness, not hygiene." And man, I tell you what, that hit me hard. "But so now you're clean, but not every one of you." And it says he knew who was betraying him. That's why he said, "Not every one of you." After he had finished washing their feet, he took his robe, put it back on, and went back to his place at the table. Man, I tell you what, that is a great sign of servanthood, because at this very moment, Jesus is beginning the process of starting his way to the cross. And here's the thing about it. We read this scripture, and we find Jesus at this moment of, there's 1,000 things that I can begin to think of if I knew that the cross was at the final step. Would I be washing people's feet? Would I be in that servant role, or would I be out trying to live my best life, or do what I could do to be happy, or whatever the case is? Like, Jesus begins to show us in this instance how important servanthood is to leadership and how they coexist together. Servanthood and leadership together. Nicholas, while you're over there falling asleep on me while I'm reading the Word of God to you, let's talk
public
about
radio.
let's talk about, man, I read that to the best of my ability too. Let's talk about, just for a few seconds, man, about how the mindset and the example that's shown in this instance. Jesus starts by stepping away from the table and beginning to wash feet. And I mean, washing feet, man, it takes some humbleness to be able to do that. Because, I mean, like, let's just be honest. People got some funky feet, all right? But at the same point in time, Jesus, who is the I call him grace with skin on. He's the Son of God, the Son of Man. He is the just he's the Christ, man. I mean, he is the way, the truth, and the life. Like he is the one, and yet he takes the title of Messiah, puts it to the side, and becomes a servant to man. What in the world, how in the world can we take an example like this and do something with it as a person?
Yeah, I mean, most people, they want titles, they want prestige, they want notoriety, they want people to look up to them, they want to look down on other people. I mean, honestly, I think, we can say that we don't want that. I think a lot of people like having other people under them. I think they like that.
It's easy to point that finger, man.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to kind of run into that mindset of, like we want to be in charge, we want to be, in control, we want people to look up to us, we want to be we want to have all this power and authority and, all this sort of thing. I mean, let's look at how many people get mad and upset when they have to, pay taxes, or a government official passes a bill that they don't like, or, anything like this. They want to be in control. They think they know how to do it better. They think they know, what's best and what's right and what's wrong. And
you go get some stuff started over
I know,
here,
that's
man.
the point. I like stirring the pot a little bit. That's the best part. That's what
Man.
I'm known for, I guess.
Yeah.
But, just kind of, getting to that point of, Jesus had the most power, the most authority, the most anything of any human being that's ever walked this earth and ever will walk this earth. Yet he stooped down to the level of a servant. He stooped down to the level of what some would consider, like in these days, like Julie does. I mean, cleans the bathrooms. The dirty jobs that nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
He stooped down and did the thing that none of them would have done.
Right.
None of the disciples in that moment. He stooped down and did things that no one in a church service on a Sunday morning would do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to think, that we deserve all of this, all this praise, all this honor, all this glory, yet we refuse to do what he did and stoop down and to put ourselves on the lowest pedestal instead of the highest. We want so much to be known and to be seen and, on this high platform, yet we refuse to do what the highest, the king of all kings did, which was stoop down and be a servant.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, from a Christian standpoint, from a worldly standpoint, we should be looking out, in our jobs, in our churches, in our communities, in our schools. We should be finding ways to not be the highest rung on the pedestal, not be the highest rung on the ladder, however you want to say that. We should look to be the lowest. We should look to try and be, how can we serve, our teachers? How can we serve our, coworkers? How can we serve our bosses better? How can we serve the bosses, our bosses' bosses? How can we serve the church leaders, the pastors? How can we serve all people the best that we possibly can? And, a lot of times we think that it has to be a position, something with power and authority, but the best way to truly serve someone is to humble yourselves, to get down and to do the work that no one else wants to do.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, we see Jesus at this point in a whole different picture. We see him from, and we talked about tonight about how he engaged people that other people had written off. He engaged those people. We talked about the woman at the well, John chapter 4, how he engaged her. She was I ain't gonna say ashamed, but we find out and we know that she was coming to the well at a different time from everyone else because she did not have a good reputation, and for Jesus to sit and to engage with her. It really speaks volumes to me. And Julie, you can talk about this a little bit because as Nick forementioned, you not only clean, but you run our guest services desk. You shake hands. You do counting. You do so much within the four walls here that it's like we have to take on different forms. There's different forms of leadership when it comes to ministry, when it comes to business, when it comes to different things. Now, I know business aspect-wise, sometimes we can get to a point of where we're so successful that, like we talk about, you can put people underneath you, things like that. But to have a value for the people and have a value for the business, I think that you kind of like have to roll your sleeves up and be involved. But in ministry, it's like, there's so many different shades of leadership but it all ties back to the servanthood aspect of it. And we see Jesus as Messiah, we see Jesus as minister, but in this moment, we see Jesus as a servant. And talk to me just in your regards about, like, just around the church here, about how ministry can grow from servanthood, not from per se leadership, but from having that servant's heart of engaging people no matter their situation and just making them feel welcomed.
So as you had said, I kind of do a few things here within the church, and I think that just does come from my servant's heart. I just want to be a help.
Right.
And I think from that, it has grown into other people helping. Like, I shout out to all the people that are now, cleaning bathrooms and sweeping floors and taking out trash. And you have to have people that do that.
Right.
And in that regards, like, it's allowed me to touch base with people and have conversations with people that I normally wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
I just love being a help to the church and to his people. And I think that's just all how we grow, and how, it doesn't have to be me up on that stage talking to people. It can just, just having that servant's heart, and people are watching and you don't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the things that I even mentioned from the stage tonight is the fact of, I heard this on a podcast today, and it really opened up my eyes to the impact that we have. We don't think about the number of people that we impact. And social media wise, I said, I was talking about Facebook. I was like, let's just say you have 1,000 friends and you post one thing. Now, granted, maybe not all 1,000 of those friends can see what you're posting or will see what you post, but let's just say, that they do. So you have impacted 1,000 lives with just a post or a video or something like that. Now, if one person shares that, and that one person has 1,000 people, I don't know if you know this or not, but 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000. So you have the capability in one post with one share to impact 1,000,000 people. 1,000,000 people with one situation, one circumstance. That's how much you can impact a life or impact a broad span of people. And just as much, and Nick, I want you to speak to this, just as much as we can impact people in a positive way, like in where Jesus done this right here, we got to watch what we say. We got to watch what we post. We got to watch what we do, because at that moment in time, not only can we impact 1,000,000 people positively, but we can impact 1,000,000 people negatively as well. And I'll go in depth just in a minute, not really in depth, but just kind of tell you a story about how, and we were having pre-discussions about this before the podcast, about how, we can literally turn people away or keep people away from church by negatively portraying what Christianity is. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, I mean, the power of life and death lies in the tongue, and of course in the modern days, we communicate more with our thumbs than, I guess, our actual voices. But I mean, it all kind
statement.
of filters in together, because, what comes out of the mouth comes from the heart.
Yeah.
So what comes out on social media comes from your heart,
right.
Whatever you're putting
what
out
you're
there.
passionate about, man.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you're communicating is where, it's a true sign of where your heart is, and if you can even go deeper biblically, a true sign of a Christian is the fruit that you bear, what comes out of your life, how you act, how you talk, how you behave, all of that. People are looking at that. We live in a world today where people are, I don't want to get, too serious or even political, but, just to say that, people are targeting Christians, from what they're saying, they're looking for opportunities to, to badmouth them, to talk bad. See, I knew I was right. I knew that they're hateful. I knew that they're judgmental.
Right.
I knew that they're, hurtful.
Yeah.
They're looking for those opportunities. We're living in a time in which, that is becoming more and more prevalent. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that. And so, it's super important for you as a Christian to be careful of, how you present your, and we've had this conversation before, even about cursing, for instance. I'll throw that one out there. When you're cursing, or you're swearing, saying these sorts of things, understanding that, people are the ones who put the impact on those words. People are the ones who said, this is a bad word. I don't like hearing that. So, people are the ones who put the impact on those words.
Yeah.
However, and I've had this discussion with the youth before, is understanding that, even though maybe you don't see that word necessarily as bad as someone else, if someone hears you saying saying that word and someone knows you're associated with a church, someone is going to think poorly about you and your church because of what you're saying.
Right.
You know, you can't necessarily control other people's the impact that your words have on them.
Right.
You know, so they may be differently impacted by what you say, what you post, or anything like that, rather than someone else that, you know, have known you for a very long time.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because you say that, because I think I referenced that from the stage tonight about how, you know, if somebody gets in trouble or if somebody says something here or does something here, it's like the question automatically goes, well, don't they go over to that church and what are they teaching over there and what do they believe? I told you they were just a bunch of crazies anyways. And it's like, you know, the behavior, the word processing, the posting, things like that, they are direct. Like, whether you want it to be that way or not, it's a direct reflection. It basically reflects back to, you know, well, I thought they were a Christian. Well, where do they go to church? And they associate the two together. And then before you know it, the whole church is bad because one person is bad. And it's like, that's not truly the case.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you see that all over the world these days.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
one cop makes a bad decision, now all cops are bad.
Right, yeah.
You know, one Democrat, one Republican makes a bad decision, now all Democrats or Republicans are bad in
Right.
the eyes of somebody.
Right, exactly.
And so, you know, it's important to understand that, you know, as a Christian, you know, there are expectations. You know, whether or not those are fair expectations is a whole different story. You know, people
That's a whole nother
put
podcast.
exactly. It's a whole nother episode sometime
Yeah.
down the road. But, you know, people do have expectations when it comes to Christianity, and you have to be careful about, you know, as I think it was maybe the last, you know, when we did with Tanner, you know, understanding that you may be the only person of, you know, that you may be the only Christian that person you're talking to knows or comes across or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the image you're portraying to that person is, you know, Christ that you're portraying to that person.
Right.
You know, that they're the only, you know, idea, you know, the only idea of Christ or Christianity that this person has is the actions and behaviors and words that you speak and post and share and, you know, do.
Right.
So, you know, you want to make sure that you are, you know, weary and you're careful about what you say and what you do. And, you know, and again, I know, you know, I'm all for, you know, not policing every single thing that you do or say and all that kind of stuff, but understand your audience, I guess, is really what I want to get across there is, you know,
Right.
be aware of the audience that you're speaking to, that you're
Yeah.
acting and you know, because I mean, there's been times that I've seen things on Facebook and, you know, you know that this person's a Christian, you know, this person's, you know, goes to this church and you're like, this person, God, I can't believe they shared that. I can't believe they said that or done that or, you know, anything like that.
Right.
And really one of the biggest things I guess I can peel away from this is, you know, people make mistakes and don't be
Right.
so fast. And again, the quickest way to get us in trouble, I guess one of the biggest things this country gets in trouble with, the world gets in trouble with these days, is looking at someone and their actions or their words and putting a box around the whole organization that they're tied to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, this whole black or white mentality of it's this way or that way. You know, if one person's that way in the group, the whole group's that way.
Right, yeah.
You know, grouping people in with that, like that is an extremely dangerous thing to do.
Absolutely.
You know, like if you see one, you know, that's why racism is bad. I mean, like
Right.
you know, is rampant in this country because,
Yeah.
you know, the actions of one white person, the actions of one black person, the actions of one Asian person, you know, all of a sudden we paint that as the entire race.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, the actions of one Christian, we paint that as the entire, you know, Christian religion.
Yeah.
The actions of one, you know, Muslim, we paint them, the entire Islamic religion now is bad because of this
Right.
one Muslim's action.
Yeah.
You know, it's very, very, very dangerous for us to do stuff like that, you know, and we do want to make sure, you know, because again, you want to present yourself as best as you possibly can. You want to present Christ as best as you possibly can as a
Right.
Christian, you know, but, you know, we're going to make mistakes. And, you know, again, not everybody's going to have the grace that a Christian has, you know, to say, oh, you know, they messed up one time, you know, it's fine, I'll forget. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say Fruition Church is bad because of the actions of one person or because I took something the wrong way. So again, you know, you want to understand that it's a very complicated thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know, you want to make sure you're careful about what you say and what you do because there are people watching you.
Man,
you know, there are people watching you and your actions.
I was gonna say, man, we've been through hell and back up in this place. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't, we don't have no holy people up in here, man. Like we have the hood rats up in here most Sundays, you know. But man, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't want it any other way. Like you know, we just talked about on Sunday, which I keep on talking like Sunday was like 5 days ago, but it was like yesterday.
Just for those who don't know, we are recording this Monday
on Monday
night. It's a little
right?
bit different,
Yeah,
so.
exactly. It is a little bit different, but you know, the message Sunday even was, you know, Jesus riding in. It was Palm Sunday. He's riding in on his donkey, and what does the Bible say? He doesn't go to his friend's house. He doesn't go to his mom's house. He doesn't go hang out with anybody. He goes to the church. And he literally cleans the church out because the church had become a den of thieves. It had become that place where it was systematic. It wasn't a house of worship and prayer anymore. It was you know, a house of religion and a way to basically to manipulate people out of, their money and everything else. And I think that's the reason why people have such a bad taste of church in general. Man, I'm gonna go deep. I mean, we may be 2 hours at this tonight, but people.
Julie's face just
I know Julie's face just dropped. I've got to get home.
I got to wake up get a baby out in 6 at 6 a.m.
I got to be at the gym to train people, man. We all got stuff.
Look at how dedicated we are.
We all got stuff, man. But to go just I like the people have bad taste of church in their mouth because a lot of times. That church that we read about in the Gospels, where Jesus came in and cleaned house, is still some of the same stuff that's going on in the world today, and people have, a bad expectation. Now, not all churches are like that. Going back to what you just said, not all churches are like that. We shouldn't lump all churches together. Just because one church treated you bad doesn't mean every church will treat you bad. Just because one church hurt your feelings doesn't mean all churches will hurt your feelings. We gotta stop lumping that together because, like you said, it can be dangerous. But Julie, with like what we were talking about with Jesus right here, Jesus began to wash the feet of the disciples. Now, the Bible says right here that the devil by this time already had Judas in his grasp, and that Jesus knew. But like what we talked about tonight, people post that Judas ate too, and we talked about how it's real Christian-y to say, and it's real cool, but we will hold grudges with people because they got a better job or a better wife or a better husband or a better house or what, like we'll hold grudges against people. We won't talk to people over stuff. We'll, like things like that. I've had people that stop talking to me, and I'll see them out in public, and I'm just like this. I will make people speak to me. I will literally, I'm too old to go diving behind aisles and act stupid and, park 7 spots down. I will walk straight up and make this uncomfortable until you say, well, hello, Keenan, or go F off somewhere. Either or. It is what it is at this point. But at the same point in time, Julie, how can we embody, because we say this, and I think we've really been hitting this hard. We can't be Jesus, but we can be like Jesus. And so how do we create that atmosphere? We start it whenever we walk through the door. You're a big part of that. Whenever people come in, they want to feel welcomed, especially, and I was talking with a church member tonight. If somebody comes in this place for the first time and they don't know anybody in here, nobody whatsoever, if they don't feel like they know somebody by the time they leave this place, they're not coming back. They're not coming back. If somebody, it's the same way, we're pushing, our product is Jesus, and we're trying to push this product, we're trying to sell this product. Now, here's the thing about it. If you go to a store and that product and nobody helps you, nobody talks to you, nobody greets you, nobody smiles at you, and you walk in, you don't know where the product is, you don't know anything about the product, and nobody's there to help you, are you going back to that store? Probably not. So why do we think it's okay in Christianity, in church, in a service, for people to walk through this door? And you might know these people. You might know them and look and go, because we said this tonight, oh, they got a bad reputation, let's stay away from them. We don't want to be around those people. That's exactly the people that Jesus went to. That's the people that Jesus went after. That's the people that Jesus entertained. Where do we, how, answer it however you want to, but how do we create that atmosphere? I know what the Bible says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom, we'll get that. But how do you create that atmosphere as people walk in the door, regardless of, because they're supposed to be bringing their baggage to church. They're supposed to be bringing their baggage to church because that's where we get rid of our baggage. How do you, tell people that and show people that and say, hey, look, we like Planet Fitness up in here. It's judgment free, baby. Jesus is the one who's going to help you, not me. I can preach to you, but I'm not going to help you. Julie, you're not going to help them per se. You may pray with them, you may love them, things like that. But Jesus is the one that's going to change their life, right? So how do we create that atmosphere in here where it's you see past, you see Judas walk in the door, but you see past what Judas is about to do and love them anyways. People suck. love them anyways. Tell me about it.
Well, I mean, that's literally what I was going to say is people do suck, but we have to love them anyways. You
Right.
know, it's cliche that, sometimes I read that instead of building higher fences, you build your tables longer. I mean, that's it. You need to invite them into your life, into your walk with Christ.
I haven't seen that Pinterest saying yet, but I'm sure that's...
We'll make a sign.
We'll make a sign. We'll hang it. It'll sound good back here. Go
Phone
ahead.
case.
Yeah.
And two, I keep remembering that podcast that you did with Charles, and the one thing that he said is he wants to make sure that
he's the nicest
he's
person.
the nicest
Yes.
person that person meets that day. We don't know what they're bringing in that door with them.
Right.
I mean, the baggage. I've been there. We've all been there, and our stories and our walks. And God's going to send people to us that we need to help and that we can reach out to.
Yeah.
And I am that person that when I've noticed a person hasn't been here for a while, well, hey, what's going on? I want them to know that you are loved, you are welcome.
Right.
That Jesus is here, and he did it for me. He can do it for you.
Yeah, and that's what I tell a lot of people that come in here. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but like, if there's a first-time person in here, I will try my best. I'm not batting 100, I got to admit, but I'm probably in the high 90s anyways. But I always try to talk to a person before they leave and say, did anybody talk to you? Did anybody smile at you? Did anybody shake your hand? Did anybody talk? Because I want to make sure that those people know that they know that they know that there are people in here that will love them, shake their hand, smile at them, make them feel like they're a part of something here. And to kind of go into, not again in depth, but I received a message today on the church Facebook page, and literally just asking my stance or the church's stance on a subject and things like that they had dealt with some stuff in the past. And, and like literally, I mean, like churches had turned their backs on a person. And like, man, I'm like, like the only thing we should be casting out of church is demons, not people. You know what I'm saying? Like we getting this all wrong if that's the case. And I've been harping on religion a lot lately. And I think maybe Passion Week just brings that out in me. But, the question was, what was our church's stance on this and this and this and this? And I'm like, look, at the end of the day, people are people. And regardless of if you're black, white, Cuban, Asian, gay, straight, I've said this, Democrat, Republican, a millionaire, broke, homeless, or a big house on the hill, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care. I just want you to come in, sit in the pew. There's no big I's or little U's, and we're all in this thing together, regardless. I'm a sinner. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm a sinner. Julie's a sinner. Nick is definitely a sinner. Definitely a sinner. Yeah. Most of the people that listen to this podcast are sinners. And it's like
all.
I know, right?
Not most. Don't sugarcoat it. If you're going to hit me with the pan,
make sure I just go across the board. But everybody is a sinner. We sin in different ways. And just because we sin in different ways doesn't make it any greater or any less, than what the other person does or is. And we all have to understand that we were all that way at some point in our life. We were all that way. Like, the only difference that separates a sinner versus somebody who knows Jesus is grace. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's it. And that's it. Like, I still sin on a daily basis. Like, I still fall short. I still do things wrong. The difference is now as I ask Jesus for forgiveness. The unbeliever or the sinner who's not been saved yet doesn't know that grace. Like, that is the only difference. And so let's talk about this for a second. It says Judas 8:2, right? We talked about that post. But the Bible says that Jesus knew. And, you can come at me with all different kinds of theology, blah, 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 blah. But, like, listen. If Jesus knew the woman at the well's past and he had never met her, I'm going to tell you right now, Jesus already knew that Judas was going to crisscross him. That's just how it is. Like, you can't tell me no different. And if it is different, Jesus will smack me one day for it. But nonetheless, how can I say this? The mindset to be able to still humble yourself, get down on your knees and wash the person's feet that is about to just totally change the direction of your life, and you know it. We can't be Jesus, but oh, to be Jesus-like. How much of an impact, Nick, could we make in the world to be not Jesus, but to be Jesus-like? Because he said, you don't understand what I'm doing now, but I'm creating a pattern for you. And like my 11-year-old son said from the stage tonight, I said, Gaines, what does a pattern do? And he says, Daddy, it repeats itself. If Jesus was laying a pattern to the disciples of washing feet and being a servant, he was saying to them, repeat this process. Repeat this process. How could we make an impact in the world by simply repeating the process? I'm not done with the question.
I'm breathing.
You're gearing up.
Yeah.
You're gearing up for a 5 minute and 42-second response. I know what you're
7
about
minute,
to do.
32
Yeah,
seconds.
I know what you're about ready to do. But how could we impact the world, man? Talk to me.
So you were done. You just didn't want, you just didn't want me.
I got a control issue
it's
sometimes,
fine.
man.
So, oh, really? No. But anyway, no. I mean, just like as you were saying that, I think of people, in our lives that we know that maybe they're bad for us. We know that they've screwed us over in the past. We know that they've screwed other people over in the past. We don't. There's so many people out there that newsflash, we don't agree with necessarily.
True.
And there's so many ideals and mindsets and political beliefs and ideologies that we don't agree with. And again, you can get theology involved, you can get morals involved, whatever you want to go with. But understanding that if Jesus can wash the feet and serve the man who was literally going to hand him over to be murdered, tortured on a cross, not just killed. I think sometimes we hear crucified, we see Jesus on the cross, we become numb to it. We have to understand that Judas was literally betraying Jesus, the one man in the world without sin, to be captured, tortured, ridiculed, spit on, ripped apart, all these horrible, horrible things.
Yeah.
Jesus still served him right before all of this happened.
Right.
So if he can do that, then why can't we have lunch with someone who's on the opposite side of the political spectrum as us?
Right.
And to me, this is just one of those things that just eats me alive, and I've told this story to a couple people just in the church, but, as about a month or so ago, I was at the state capitol. And when I was at the state capitol in the rotunda, there was a trans right rally going on. Mm-hmm. There was a Senate bill going on. They were there, I'm talking over 100, 150, people who were supportive of, transgender rights, trans kids, right, all these sorts of things,
Right.
And they were loud. They were, chanting. They were, ranting and raving. They were, giving their opinions, saying it, all over the rotunda in the state capitol.
Right.
Well, the next day, there was a Family First Foundation, I guess you could call it rally. There was maybe 30, 40 people there.
Right.
And these are all people, they were singing worship songs with a guitar. They were preaching a little bit. They were praying, and God's kind of spoke to me in those 2 days. And he's like, imagine if these people were here yesterday.
Right.
Imagine if the Family First Foundation, these so-called Christians, were here yesterday with the people that they didn't agree with, talking to them, loving on them, getting to know them,
Bridging
gaps, exactly. Instead, they were calling them out. It was a me versus them mentality. Was what was going on.
Yeah.
And it just hit me hard. In that day as I was walking amongst both groups, it hit me hard just thinking, as Christians, we should be here a first day, talking to these people, loving on these people, getting to know these people. We get so scared of being infected with a opposite mentality. We get so worried that, someone's going to see me talking to these people and assume that I'm supportive of sin and, all this sort of thing. But there are people out there hurting. I mean, my God, there was, not to get too, but there was a woman, or, I'm not going to get, I don't know exactly how to describe, but there was, a person who was transgender just murdered 3 kids and 3 adults, because a Christian school ridiculed them and their beliefs and their thoughts and their ideas, for so long. They felt so hated, so bullied, so angry, so frustrated that they felt that was the only way that they could get that rage out, to get that attention. And it's just crazy to me because right after that happened, a part of a youth group on Facebook that I'm a part of with youth leaders, Like, there were youth pastors, Christians, people who called themselves Christians, saying that these transgender people needed to commit suicide. This
Right.
is stupid.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
stupid.
Yeah.
And I mean, like,
where's the hope in that, man?
Exactly.
Where's the hope?
Where is the hope? Where is Jesus in that?
Right. Oh, absolutely.
The
yeah.
Jesus who knelt down and, washed feet of sinners and, dealt with that, like, where is Jesus in that? It's just, it's sick and it's sad and it's just awful that our country has become this versus that, Christian versus sinners, and there's sinners in the Christians, and it's just, it's crazy to think that this kind of stuff is happening on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's hurtful. It's heart, it's heartbreaking, that there are kids in schools right now, that are being bullied because of whatever, is going on in their life, whatever they believe. But there are no, the Christian kids in the school are, not necessarily being taught to bridge those gaps. They're being taught that they're wrong, that lifestyle is wrong, and that they're, we don't associate with those types of people.
Right.
But, again, Jesus is the ultimate, bridge builder, gap bridging type, human being.
Yeah.
God in flesh, it's just crazy to think that if we want to be Christ-like, we think we can be Christ-like, but still hate and judge and ridicule and cuss out and, manipulate. And, it's crazy to think that there are people out there right now who think they're a Christian, but also think it's okay for a group of people to kill themselves because of what they believe, instead of trying to bridge that gap and love on those groups of people.
Right.
And it's just crazy to me to think, because that's what so many Christians have become these days. And it's, and again, not to group every Christian into that, because it's not true. Not every Christian is like that.
True.
But there are a lot, that have that mentality, because again, I've said this multiple times on the podcast, the world knows what Christians are for and what Christians are against. They know that already. So us shoving that down their throats on a regular basis isn't going to help those people.
Right.
We can't be, constantly, building walls. We need to be building bridges.
Yep.
Instead of looking through a small window, tear the wall down and meet that person face to face, talk to them, get to know them, love on them, all these sorts of things. It's crazy to me that, we can, we talk about, especially, Passion Week, all the things that Jesus did on his time here. And, we are supposed to be Christians, Christ in us, we are supposed to emulate Christ on a daily basis. But, we have Christians out here, who are, being hateful and wishing the worst possible outcomes on people's lives, just because they don't agree with it, or they don't understand it, or they don't want to talk to those types of people.
Yeah.
So it's just so important for us, if we want to be Christians, we have to bridge those gaps. We have to serve the people that we don't agree with. We have to serve all people, not just the people who look like you, talk like you, worship like you, pray like you, work like you, all these sorts of things. We have to build bridges and bridge gaps with all people groups, with all religions, with all nationalities, all identities, all orientations, all of these sorts of things. If we really want to build the kingdom of God, if we really want to emulate Christ, that is what we're going to have to do.
Was that 5 minutes? And
Probably about
seconds?
15 minutes.
Oh,
but,
my goodness.
I don't know.
See, I
wasn't
knew
paying
you was
attention,
gearing up whenever you said,
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
and you just kept going, man. I knew.
It's like Eminem and Rap God. I was going to take that deep breath and just get it all out.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew what was coming, man. But I agreed. Agreed. There's so many different things that I think that we can get better at as a church in general. Not just at like I said, there's always things that we can get better at Fruition. I think that. But at the same point in time, Jesus, man, Jesus done some crazy stuff. And he was the example. He was the example through all of this. Julie, I'm gonna read off some points tonight that I thought was how would you say it? Probably some important highlights of what was said tonight. And after I read these, I'll maybe pick one, or maybe just to put into retrospect how you felt about what was said, or about how we can improve. It says, just because people suck doesn't mean you should stop serving. Jesus traded his robe for an apron. If you can't wear the apron, you'll never be ready for the robe. Being a leader is being a servant. No one cares about how clean your soul is if you can't get your hands dirty. Judas was there too, which means you will still serve people who won't serve you. Jesus set a pattern for his disciples to follow. We might not be Jesus, but we can be like Jesus. And then if we do what Jesus done, then we'll see what Jesus did. That's just some points, some highlights from tonight. But, what do you think? As far as what did you take from the sermon per se, or from these points right here, and how can we build on, again, not being Jesus, but we can be Jesus-like?
I mean, just being like Jesus, like you had said.
I thought that was the answer. I was like, I mean,
like
yeah, I was
Jesus.
like,
Hashtag
okay.
be like Jesus.
Yeah, okay.
I think if we just live the life, love the people, all the people.
Right.
I think about the woman that came to Jesus when he had come into the disciples' home, and she was, had the alabaster box of oil.
Oh, absolutely.
And here she is at his feet, washing his feet with her hair.
Expensive stuff, man.
Expensive oil. And one of the disciples, it may have even been Judas, one of the disciples had said, here she is, like, we could have sold that oil. We could have,
right?
right? And here's
Yeah.
Jesus saying, well, I came into your house and you didn't even wash my feet.
Yeah, like, what are we doing?
Like, if you only understood. And I guess I just, sometimes I do look at the disciples and I'm thinking, you had him right there. You were with him that whole time.
Yeah.
And yet here's this woman washing his feet with her tears and the oil, and how, like, if they had only understood, she was just preparing. She was just in preparation.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that if we just live the life and we just love like Jesus, and we have to look past people's mistakes and give them grace. I think that we are, very easy to give some people grace, but not everybody grace.
I was going to say, isn't it funny, because I think we want all the grace from God that we can get, but giving that grace out to people, that's a whole nother ball game, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead now. I'm sorry.
I think it kind of depends, on a personal level, like, like I said, we think that, well, maybe that person deserves grace, but I don't know. I mean, that kind of did me dirty. Really
bad, yeah.
But God calls us to love everybody and to forgive everybody and to be more like him each and every day.
Yeah.
I don't know if this relates to that per se, but I just living the life and just being a servant of Jesus. I think back to when you had actually married Dalton and Whitney, and I was so excited for you to meet my nephew, because he loves music. It's his jam, and you, of course, have that in common with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, but if they could just talk about music, it'll lead into Jesus. I just
yeah.
knew it.
Yeah, yeah.
And couldn't wait for you to meet him. And I introduced you as, hey, this is my pastor. He's a lover of music.
And I hate that.
And
I hate when anybody introduces me as, hey, this is Pastor Keenan. Like, it just blows my whole cover, and then people clam up, and they're like,
oh, he likes music.
Yeah,
Hillsong,
yeah, exactly.
Elevated,
Yeah. What's your playlist, Corey Asbury? Like, oh my gosh. No, it's Lil Wayne, dog.
We were just reading it off. Eminem was in there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. And then his response is, well, that's awesome, because I'm a lover of Jesus. And it just, like, floored me. Like, there was the lump in my throat, and I was just like, what?
Yeah.
And he proceeded to tell me later that day that it was just, last time he was in Kentucky, he was listening to me just talk, just talk about God. And it prompted him to do some research, and now he's a lover of Jesus.
Right.
So,
yeah.
You just never know who's watching you.
Right.
And, I mean, yeah, we all make mistakes and we all fail daily, and we're sinners saved by grace, but you just never know that impact that you can have on somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just the impact. I think it's a, we'll talk about this just for a few seconds, but it's almost like a connection thing almost. Like you have to connect in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Jesus, I think, in every situation that you can go back and read in the Bible, and the Bible's very clear to say that not every miracle is recorded. That, like, if you were to talk about everything that Jesus had done, then you would be here forever. But the miracles that were recorded in the Gospels, it's like you can go back and read those, and there was a connection. Whether it was the person trying to get to Jesus or Jesus talking to the person, there was always a connection there somehow or another. The first thing that comes to my mind is the woman with the issue of blood. I mean, like, she had tried, and whether desperation was her connection, there was still a connection. She had spent 12 years, spent her money, spent everything, and like she pushed through the crowd that day just to get to the hem of the garment of Jesus, to have that connection. There was a touch there. There was a connection. again, Jesus with the woman at the well. There was a conversation which led to a connection. You know, like there's always something there. And it's like, if you can get, man, just a foot in the door, you know, that's the reason why, just in total honesty, I never like to introduce myself as a pastor, because as soon as people hear the word pastor, most of the time they shut down. You know, they shut down. They get not really defensive, but they're, you know, I was going to say the cussing stops. Guarded. You know, what did you do Friday night? I sat at home and I read my Bible and listened to, and it's like,
I sat home and I read my Bible.
It's like, shut up, fool. No, you didn't. You know, like you were out doing crazy stuff. I know you was. And it's like, but that's also, it's funny, but it's sad, because people are so guarded that it's like, that guy's going to look, because here's the mindset, that guy's going to look at me and he's going to judge me. Well, it's not my job to judge you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's that, and I think maybe that's like the thing where I try to tell everybody that I come in contact with, because, but believe it or not, I have more people ask me in disbelief that I'm a pastor rather than I knew you were a pastor. They're like, you're a pastor? And I'm like, yeah, man. You know, and I think maybe I give them hope. I don't know, because they're like, God, if this dude is a pastor, I could definitely come to his church. You know, like I
could just be a normal Christian, right?
Yeah, they're going to be like the last 6 in, you know, like, but I'm still in. My hind end's on fire, but I'm in heaven, you know. So it's like, maybe you give them a little bit of hope. I don't know, man. But you know, even tonight we were joking about, you know, just I was joking about Peter, like how Peter was so relatable to me, because he was, you know, at one second he was cussing, the next second he was praising. He was fighting and cutting off ears, but yet he was starting churches. You know, he was sinking in the water, but yet he was going deeper into the confines of this illegal trial that they had for Jesus than any other disciple. You know, it's like, I can identify with Peter, man, because as much as Peter got wrong, he got right, and Jesus loved him regardless. I can identify with Peter. Now, don't get me wrong, I've been Judas too, man, and I think that's what a lot of Christians have to understand, and they have to remember that before you ever was a Peter, home dog, you was a Judas, bro. You know, like before you was saved, you was a Judas, you know. And I think that's what we have to really get, and we really have to wrap our heads around, was that, you know, that the Bible says, you know, that by grace, through faith, you know, that we're saved, that we have that relationship with Jesus. And, you know, we have to remember that. So, and kind of tying all of this together tonight, you know, give your final thoughts, Nick. Nick, let's we're gonna put a timer on you, Nick. But just in your final thoughts here, man. Like for people that are listening, maybe for the first time. I mean, who knows? But you know, for the people that are listening tonight, man. How can we put the message out there that church is not just for somebody, but it's for everybody, man. Church is for everybody. You know. We're all flesh and blood. We all screw up. We all fall short. And to think that church has become a social club, or that it's become, you know, you got to look this way, you got to think this way, you got to act this way, you got to read this way, you got to dress this way, you got to whatever. To think that it's become that. To think, and we've had this conversation. It's sad that whenever you invite somebody to church, the first question is what? What do y'all wear? What? I would be worried about if they sacrifice your firstborn or not. I would be worried about if they have venomous snakes. You know, like I would be worried about not what do you wear, because somebody's going to judge you and tell you to turn around and walk out. And it's like, what? Why has our priorities and why has our perception of what church is become so screwed up? Whenever we go back and we read John chapter 13, and Jesus was washing the feet of a dude that was about ready to sell him out. How do we get it right whenever we've got it wrong? Because that was the message Sunday. Get it right, church. We got to get it right within these four walls before we can't expect a lost world to come into a judgmental church. How? How is that possible? It's not. How do we fix that, Nick?
I also think back
In 7 minutes or less.
Right. I guess I say I think back, but as far as Passion Week goes, I think forward just a little bit. When Jesus is on the cross and there's two other people there as well, who in both of these people, it says that they were ridiculing him and saying things as well, spitting things out and joining the crowd as far as speaking against Jesus. But one of those people, Jesus took to heaven with him that day.
The thief on the cross.
The thief on the cross. One of those people, who was joining in the ridicule, joining in the judging eventually, on that same, within that short time span, Jesus took that person to heaven with him that day. Mm-hmm. And, I think it's also funny because I remember I'd seen this guy on Facebook, who, was, again, professing to be a Christian. And, he was running with the ideal that, you can't be a Christian, go to heaven unless you've been baptized. Uh-huh. And I saw this video just, the other day that was talking about the thief on the cross and said, where was his baptism?
Here's a great question before. Oh, man, I mean, we may open up another can of worms. Right. I don't know. We may open up another 30 minutes. What time are you going home tonight, Julie? Midnight, 1 a.m.? What are we doing,
Hey, I'm usually in bed by now.
I know. I understand completely. But anyways, the question becomes with that, like, the thief on the cross breaks the mold. Mm-hmm. It breaks the mold, because we're sitting here like, you have to pray the sinner's prayer. First off, show me the sinner's prayer. Mm-hmm. Is it that now I lay me down to sleep? I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take, and give us this day our daily bread. And like, is that the prayer? Because I'll tell you the prayer that got me saved. Help! Mm-hmm. I just echoed in here in church because everything was. But my prayer was, Lord, forgive me of my sins. Help. I feel like I'm drowning. Like that was my prayer. And Jesus answered my prayer. And, to think that church, Christianity, salvation, whatever the case is, looks like the same image no matter what across the board. If that was the case, ladies and gentlemen, then why we got 962 million different churches? Mm-hmm. Why we got people that's like me that's preaching in holy jeans and T-shirts and people that's preaching in three-piece suits? Why we got people that's reading the KJV and I'm over here reading the Message or the NLT or the CSB or the KJV sometimes? Why? Why is it the thief on the cross broke the mold to show you? Jesus had a conversation with him. And he said, you know what? This day you will be with me in paradise. You will be with me in paradise. I never read one time in there where it was like, Jesus hanging on a cross, and he's like, I need you to pray the sinner's prayer before you can get into
really quick before you die. Really quick. Hurry up.
You got 4 breaths, and I know the last 4 breaths. Now, I am Jesus, so I can give you 7 breaths to get this done, but we're going to do it in 4.
I'll make you a deal, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like it breaks the mold. Mm-hmm. Why can't we have that mentality? Watch this. It's going to blow some people's mind. Jesus left a pattern. Why can't we pursue the pattern? All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead now.
No. But again, just bringing that back to the idea that Jesus again forgave someone who was ridiculing him and took him to heaven that day without a baptism, without saying a prayer.
It was a thief.
Yeah, exactly. It was a someone that was being tortured alongside Jesus for crimes he actually did commit.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think as we've been saying, and this, heck, I might argue with you to make this the title, but I think just to leave people with 3 simple words: it's serve all people. I thought
you were going to say it as well.
I'm like, it as well, right?
Like,
yeah, I was like, that's her job.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Just serve all people. Jesus served all people. He didn't just pick and choose. He served all people. He served sinners. He served tax collectors. He served prostitutes. He served, diseased people. He served religious people. He served thieves. Serve all people. If we want to see the world change, we need people who are willing to serve all people.
Absolutely.
And I think that's just the thing I want to leave everyone with tonight is just to remember that, if we want to see change happen, we have to start by serving all people.
Absolutely, man, and you cut it off short. I mean, that's hey, serve all people. I'm done. Option A, serve people. There you go. Julie, what's your thoughts? I mean, like in this process, how do we break the mold? How do we get better? How do we show people, tell people, yo, church is not a bad place. You need to come try it out. Like, you know, I'm not saying it for all places, but you know, hey, come try out Fruition. You know, I mean, like we good people for the most part. But you know, how do you break that mold? How do you get the word out? How do you show people? How do you do it?
Well, I guess I just think I go back to when Fruition first started, and, you know, the banner says, no denomination, no religion, just Jesus.
Just Jesus.
Just Jesus.
Absolutely.
We don't care what you're wearing. We don't care, you know, how you're living. Like Jesus, it kind of reminds me, I think you just said it Sunday or yesterday.
Yeah, I know, right? It's still crazy, man.
Well, give it a little bit longer. It might not be yesterday.
Yeah, right.
I think you just said it yesterday about how a woman said, well, you know, I can't bring my husband because he's popping a beer first thing in the morning.
Oh.
Come with the beer.
Here we go. You're going to get it now. There goes our listeners right now.
Come with the beer because I know my experience with the Lord. Like, you might be leaving that beer with you and get you some Jesus.
Absolutely.
I just think about, you know, I hate that saying that people say, well, God don't bless in a mess. Well, yeah, he does, because I was that mess.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, just bridge those gaps and just reach out and come to Fruition if you're local.
Shout out.
Yes. Mic drop
Or else.
Fruition.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Or fly in from one of the 33 states that we are and pack up everything, come to Kentucky. You know, go ahead.
Yeah, just break down those walls and just let people see him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, I mean, that would be my advice too, is that, you know, at the end of the day, and I've said this time and time again, you know, Jesus was real. He was relatable. He was raw. That's it. 3 things: real, relatable, raw. I really think that if Christians would take down the persona and the acting role of, well, I'm a Christian, you know, I go to church, so therefore we don't fight in our home. Shut up. Like, you know, like, yes, you do. You probably threw a plate. You probably acted a fool. I know you went to bed mad. You know, that couch looks pretty slept on. I don't know. You tell me. Like, you know, we'll go to church. My kids will never act up and do anything wrong. They'd be in jail. Like, they'll be in jail. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just be real. To me, like, when somebody comes in and they sit down for the first time, I don't care. They can tell me, oh, the lights look nice and the donuts were good or the people were nice. But, like, if somebody comes to me and says, you know what, I just like it because it's real here, that is probably one of the best compliments that I can ever get as a pastor, as a Christian, as a leader. Just keep it real. You know, and that's actually our new shirts that we're coming out with. Like, it literally says on the front, just be real. Just be real. And on the back, it says, if the church hurt you, we're sorry. You know, like, we're sorry because, you know, here, man, we're just going to keep it real. And I'm struggling, you struggling, we all struggling, but we're going to build each other up. We're going to pray for each other. We're going to point each other towards Jesus and the cross. And, you know, like I said Sunday, if you're carrying your cross, you ain't got time to crucify anybody else. If you're carrying your own cross, you ain't got time to crucify anybody. And even tonight, like, if you down washing feet, you ain't got time to worry. You ain't got time to do. You got to serve. You got to serve people, like my guy Nick said. So that's it. Real, relatable, and raw. That's how you become a better servant. That's how you become a better leader. And I think that's really how you break down this mold and stigma of, you know, the church is this place that's going to crucify you as soon as you walk in the door. No, man. We're just real, relatable, we're raw, and we're trying to help get people to, as many people to Jesus as possible. So thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Julie, for being here with us tonight on such short notice. This is how we do every episode, but for Julie, it's short notice. But we pick our guests like 27 minutes before it starts, and they show up, right? And we go from there. But thank you so much, Miss Julie, for being here tonight, for sharing your heart and wisdom. Thank you for all you do at Fruition and for helping the kingdom of God grow. Nicholas, congratulations again one more time, and we pray for the best for you and your wife tomorrow as you help bring in a newborn into the world. We pray for you and your hairline that it doesn't go back any further than what it already is.
No, it's coming. It's going.
Oh, man. You're going to have to shave that beard whenever a hairline goes because you're going to look creepy if you don't. I'm just saying, man.
I thought about just getting a little mustache, maybe a goatee to go with it. Maybe, I mean, I might as well just roll with the creepiness.
Well, we're going to kick you out of the kids' room. That's for sure if that happens because our youth group will not grow. Anyways, so again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting. Tell your friends, tell your family. Hit that download button. We're on our way to 50 states. We're on our way to all the countries, and we just want to tell more people about Jesus. So we love you. We appreciate you. Have a blessed week, and we'll catch you back next time.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.
Thank you to everyone for listening to the People Suck But Love Them Anyways podcast. As always, you can check us out on Facebook at Fruition Church, YouTube at Fruition Church of Hodgenville, and check out our website at www.fruitionchurchky.org. Remember, don't suck and love people.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, go.